Assalamualaikum, Tashahau, Ipdi Vanikam, and welcome to the third episode of Sembang Santai with me, Afiq Salif, and finally she's back, Salah
Hey.
Salihan. In today's podcast, the podcast where we sembang about Malaysia, on today's topic, guess what? COVID-19.
Okay, so in today's podcast, we have 4 parts to discuss, but let's kickstart with the most scandalous one, which is obviously politics. Okay, so we're going to talk about whether or not healthcare is politicized, and is our government doing a good enough job at trying to curb COVID-19, and are they catering to rakyat's best interest?
Apa cia politician ni?
Apa cerita Adam Baba ni?
Oh.
Minum air suam. So the backstory of it was that Dr. Adam Baba, who was in interview in Awani, where he advised the people to drink warm water, in a sense that warm water would kill the coronavirus in our lungs, which is factually incorrect.
Wait, you said he was a doctor? It's Dr. Adham Baba?
Dr. Adham Baba, who has a few clinics around Malaysia. So yeah. And he is the Minister of Health.
Ooh,
the
cherry on
person
top.
in charge to improve our healthcare. What do you think, Afiq? Is he competent? Is he capable of taking...
You know, like, I know he's a doctor, but there are times where I look back at his name on Wikipedia, like, ada doktor ke depan tu? No, like, this is not being sarcastic or this is not trying to attack him. It's sometimes an honest question I ask myself. Because how could he come up with such statement? Like the other day, not like the other day, but like a few weeks ago, somebody tweeted to Dr. Amalina Bakri on Twitter,
Okay.
is this true? Is drinking boleh ke minum air ni menyingkirkan COVID ni daripada badan? And then she was like, of course not. Where do you get this? And then the person replied, Adham Baba. And then Dr. Amalina said, couldn't be lah. Couldn't be. Then, surprise, they shared a screen recording of that interview. So it just makes you question.
Wait, but that's not the only thing that he did.
Yeah.
What else he do?
Before the warm water, he gave an incorrect demonstration of to use a mask. Can you imagine?
Oh my god.
Thousands of people watching you on a live TV show and you give an incorrect way to wear a mask, which is very dangerous, and it could lead to the spread of this virus.
At times like this, scrutiny. Right? People, like we are, one thing during COVID, maybe not now, a few weeks back, is that people hate politics. We don't politicize everything. Twitter will be in an uproar.
Correct.
And all of our eyes will be on KKM and DG. What are they doing? They are the gospel right now. And when you have somebody saying something factually incorrect, it just messes everything up.
It's not just somebody at his position, somebody who we look up to and we seek advice from,
Correct.
giving this kind of stupid remarks.
Yeah, also in the same department, the Timbalan, what?
Yes,
Oh, God.
on the Timbalan, who the backstory of this was that Nur Azmi Ghazali, who was the Deputy Minister of Health, was charged with breaching of MCO. Can you imagine? The Deputy Minister of Health, who basically wrote the policies, or his department wrote the policies and SOPs towards this MCO, violating the MCO.
Exactly.
People say you lead by example. And what kind of perception would we have towards our ministers when they themselves are not adhering? They are bragging online, posting on Facebook and whatnot about meetings and, what did he claim, Sarah?
He claimed that he was there to bincang masalah rakyat. Girl, you can do that over a phone. You're telling us to do things over the phone. You're telling us to learn over the phone, like online and stuff. You buat juga lah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about another fella, Zuraida.
Oh god.
Aduh.
Oh god.
So Zuraida, backstory. in the first phase of MCO, she wore a full PPE to go and disinfect a pasar, I think, somewhere in a pasar. And that's not the worst part of it. The worst part of it was that on her PPE, it was printed out and pasted Menteri on her PPE, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, you're having a gathering, and I think, was she the only one wearing full set PPE?
No, like the team.
The team,
Yeah.
but there were people around her that were not wearing PPE, right?
Oh, really?
If I'm not
Yeah.
if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
God.
And
That's even
she
worse.
made people clearly know that she is a menteri.
Yeah, which is again what Afiq said. In this first phase of MCO, politics were all put aside. We just came from a change of government, a very rough patch for us, and the cases were increasing from. This was the second wave of cases. We were reaching, I think, a peak of 200 cases per day, which was very scary. And everyone, collectively, Malaysia just decided to put politics aside, and we were all working to help the government.
But or not on this Azraida and Adam Baba issue, right? Note that the next day there will always be a statement by KKM, by DG, and I think this is the conclusion that we're coming to, that politicians, and as far as their concerns for the rakyat goes and what they're doing for the rakyat, they are always disconnected from what DG would say. They're disconnected of what we truly need to do. And what DG will always do is throw them under the bus.
True. I mean, what can he do? He's giving a press conference every day, and he makes his decision, according to him, he makes his decision based on science and data. You cannot go wrong when you go with science and data.
Correct.
And then you have, I don't know, maybe Dr. Adam Baba is Dr. Hisham's boss, right? In a matter of speaking.
Yes,
He's in charge of NI. You when your boss is not following the orders or is giving out ridiculous remarks, and you're working so hard to contain the spread of this virus, I think what he did was necessary.
Of course.
It was necessary, and he's a civil servant. He's been around since 2013. He was the DG since 2013, and he went through a change of governments, and he does his work based on data and science.
He's still practicing, right?
Oh no, I do not know
He
that.
goes to a hospital Putrajaya because he's a surgeon, right? So he goes there, masuk OT, operate, balik.
Wow,
That's
that's
nice.
amazing.
It's like our politicians, basically, even if you are doing it with good intention, you not meet and greet dengan rakyat, tell them you care and stuff. I understand that you want to be kind, but at least have a brain when you're trying to be kind. Because,
Common sense.
Yeah, even if you're claiming you want to be nice, if common sense you tak ada and people come at you, you have to accept that.
Yes.
So this is what we want you to do. Firstly, don't press charges against us.
Thank you. Please.
Please.
Second is please open parliament.
Wait,
Please,
before we go
God.
into the parliament, we haven't finished on the Timbalan KKM. He got charged.
Oh,
So
okay.
this, I think, is one of the first time where a deputy minister got charged. And no, not only deputy minister, together with the exco or state minister of Pahang.
Yeah, basically someone like
Yeah,
that.
both of them got charged in the court. Do you think we are moving in the right step, charging those
Of
who were
course.
deemed above the law by some?
Yeah, of course. Like, you're still under the law. The law is still applicable to you.
Yeah, so I think what our judiciary side of the government did was correct, and we are not totally lost in terms of transparency of the government.
The other
There is still
component,
check and balance
Yeah.
within our government, which is good.
that's for the judiciary. But for the other part of government, please open parliament.
Correct.
Yeah, we need parliament to check, and we have the stimulus package. It needs to be checked. Where's the money going? There was the case where under the women ministry, where the food packages which were stated to be 100 ringgit, when they calculated the stuff, it was just 30 ringgit. This is trying times, and a lot of people will take this opportunity to make money and profit off, and it is the government's duty to ensure that people or the people who are in need receive what they need and not skimming off through agents or companies where they will get the money from the government and profit themselves. This is very bad, I think. It gives a bad picture to our government.
Also note that we're not trying to demonize people up top. I give it to you that how Malaysia has gone and how the numbers have decreased. We've done a good job. So pat your back. You receive that. But don't be too optimistic. I saw this video on Twitter talking how nice Malaysia was. And then some politician, I forgot who, retweeted that saying, Malaysia is doing well. Give us a pat on the back. Like, the first thing I want to comment is the only reason why we want to believe that video is because, it's a white dude. Second, he talks like Nas Daily. Keeps complimenting Malaysia. It doesn't help anyone.
Correct.
We need to stay optimistic but cautious at the same time. So because of that, we need an exit strategy.
True.
So, how does this exit strategy look like? First, we need to talk about parameters. There's a lot of parameters. People think, if we have low numbers of cases, good, open back the economy. If we close our borders, good, we can open back our economy. In my personal opinion, the most important thing is mass testing.
Right.
To know if you're under control, we need mass testing, not the other way around. And this is the only way for you to contain asymptomatic cases. These are cases of people that have COVID, but they don't show symptoms. Diorang tak demam, diorang tak batuk, yada. So, this also implies that a country can claim they don't have COVID cases, have zero COVID cases, but at the same time, they don't do any testing. We can only know how many people have COVID. Our results are just as good insofar as we do mass testing. And people try to say, but we have track and tracing. But track and tracing does have its limits.
Like Singapore, the initial part when Singapore, before they had this Mustafa cluster, they were very hard on tracing and testing because they were below us by a lot initially. But then they did mention, the Minister of Health in Singapore did mention that there is a limit to testing, and when you have a low number of cases, it is possible to track and test. But when it gets out of hand, we have to come up with different way of approaching this, which there's other parameters.
So we see there are countries like Denmark and also that UK, but they've changed that strategy. But the strategy they took when it got out of hand was to head towards natural herd immunity. Is it possible? So this is what we're going to discuss for a bit.
Let's go.
So note, herd immunity is basically when a certain number of the population gets infected enough, they don't become a vector to the virus, so they become duds. So it's like you have an armor of people around you. Let's say Sarah, you get COVID, but me and Zalif, you are not infected at all. You are not immune to it. You haven't been exposed to it at all. Me and Zalif, we got it. We have gone through all the symptoms. We have recovered,
and we are immune.
Right? If me and Zalif went out and we meet a person, we greet them, we shake their hands with a person who's infected with COVID, and we come back to you, you are not at risk.
Faham?
Right? So we are barriers, we are armors to do that. Armors from the virus towards you, right? But this is a very micro level way of looking at it. On a nation scale, we need millions of people,
a percentage of people to
become duds to the virus so you don't transmit it to other people. Once enough people become duds towards the virus, it's hard for it to spread across society. That's the ultimate goal.
But the question is, we are talking about without vaccine, right?
Yeah.
So how long will it take to reach herd immunity without vaccine, and how many people must die?
Correct.
How many people must die? Because not everyone can survive through this virus. A lot of people died.
So how do we answer this question of whether natural herd immunity can occur or not? You need to answer a couple of things. The first is, how long does that immunity last? If I got COVID and I'm infected and I've recovered from it, how long do I have those antibodies inside my body? It could be a year, it could be a month, or it could be even a couple of days. We've seen cases of reinfection happening in cases like South Korea and China. That would blatantly suggest that, oh, people are reinfected. That must mean that the antibodies protecting you against COVID must be very short term. But what China and South Korea claim, or what the lab claims, was those are dormant viruses. Those are not categorized as reinfection. So there is still a possibility of natural herd immunity floating around. So that's the first problem. Okay, let's say kita husnuzon, that is possible. What's the second problem when we are heading towards natural herd immunity? It's because you need to arrive at a certain threshold. This was what I was talking about earlier on. We need at least, so I've done a bit of calculation, 71.8% of the population to be infected, which is, if we take into the account of the Malaysian population, 31 million, we need about 23.4 million people getting infected. Right? Note this calculation assumes the infectivity of the virus is what it was before the condition of RMO. There was no social distancing, the borders were still open, and I think it's safe to assume so because we are increasingly headed towards that. Right? CMO is being lifted slowly and slowly, and a lot more cars on the road, yada yada yada. Apparently, the UK government for a while suggested this, but they changed their strategy. But a very hard-headed person who really wants this now is our very own Elon Musk on Twitter.
I think 71.8% of the population has been infected. 23 million in Malaysia. That means having 71% of our population in hospitals. Because you have to treat them if they want to recover from...
Oh, tak semestinya deh.
Some of them can recover themselves, or... You meaning... Because what I understood... I think Elon Musk's position is that... in America, the healthcare is really... The numbers are really crazy.
Yeah.
So... It's almost impossible to contain it. So if you can't contain it, might as well just let it go and achieve this herd immunity.
When track and tracing is just not
out of
possible
hand
anymore.
When you have 1,000 dying by the day, it just gets out of hand, and there's not really much solution you have other than just to wait it out. Because you can't contain people. Maybe you can quarantine, but then there's the question of economy. So then maybe Elon Musk has a point, in a way.
I mean, yeah, of course. You can achieve that over time. But are we willing to sacrifice that many people? Are we willing to lose so much of our country?
Not because in this 23.4 million people that has to be infected in order to achieve natural herd immunity, a certain percentage of them inevitably dies.
Yes.
I think the death rate is what, 5%? 10%? Corona death rate?
Globally lah, but Malaysia quite low.
Yeah.
Because note, when we talk about the curve, lowering the curve, it's not just about decreasing the number of people it's not just about lowering the curve, flattening the curve, It's also about raising the line. That line is the healthcare capacity.
Yeah. Which is one of the World Health Organization benchmark. They had 6 benchmark before opening back the economy. I think one of them was the capability of the healthcare to receive the patients in another case of an outbreak. And I think the last one was economy. So there is the question of how the economy will happen.
But before that, I want to conclude a bit. So why are we saying all this? I don't think any politicians ever talk about heading to natural herd immunity. But it does illustrate this conclusion that I'm going to make. COVID is not going to go away. The only way to achieve herd immunity is by vaccines. So if any of you think that it's possible for Malaysia to achieve absolutely 0 cases of COVID, that is impossible. That is ludicrous, I tell you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we also need people to have the ability to provide for their family. So that's where the economy needs to be open. So it all lies in the curve. At when we're flattening the curve and when we open back the economy, inevitably the curve will go upwards. But the question solely depends, not solely, I'm sorry. Have we raised the line enough to
Open
put
back the
people
economy.
who have very severe symptoms into hospitals and contain them? Are we able to save the lives of those people? So that's why I've been talking about mass testing is important. Because number one, we need to know the absolute, we need to be certain of the numbers of cases, and we need to contain asymptomatic cases. And at the same time, increase the capacity so that we are able to we are able to head towards herd immunity with less casualties.
Then, from what you say, Afiq, it gives out the question, mati sebab COVID or mati sebab tak cukup duit nak beli makanan? Which one is more important? Is health more important or is the economy more important? What do you think, Sarah?
Well, personally, I think having to choose between those two choices just equates to a non-functional government in the first place. You know, you cannot let your people be on the verge of death and tell them to choose which death do you prefer, because that's just inhumane as a government to do.
Right.
But understand that some people are actually willing to just risk it all and go to work just because they want to provide food
For the family.
Yeah, which is ultimately really, really sad. Hence why governments really should prioritize monetary incentive to their citizens as well in these trying times. You know?
You know why it's so bad? Bila there's this slow lift of CMO, we see people heading to Gerai Pajak to sell their stuff.
Yeah.
And that just illustrates how desperate people are to get cash right now. Cash flow is so constricted and it's affecting people. If you are listening to this using an iPhone or you're in your car driving to work, note that you, me, everyone here concedes that we are all very privileged. But there are some people out there living paycheck to paycheck. Sectors that are not considered necessarily by the eyes of the government.
Tourism, the makcik gerai.
Exactly.
Some people has their whole livelihood based on that shop. And some more it's Ramadan. People have invested money to buy equipments for the gerai. They make about 3-5 times more money, and maybe this money would tide them off until end of the year. And then we have the Raya season coming where companies, people invest their money on baju Melayu in hopes that, they can make the return and again tide off the wave and survive until end of the year. A lot of people are doing this, and with this virus going around, we are not able, and there is a loss of hundreds of millions in terms of money.
Yeah. And one thing I want to applaud from Italy, when they had one of the highest cases of corona, they have a policy in which you will still receive your paycheck if you stay at home, which I think is very, very important for any country to implement in the first place, because you really need to clear the streets, but at the same time you need to make sure people can provide food for their family, can still survive at the end of the day, because just killing off your people, making them choose between one death over another is just too inhumane.
It shows that you fail as a government.
Okay, but let's look what they're doing right now. CMCO. Right? So we have MCO, we have phase 2 of MCO, we have phase 3, phase 4, which was cut short and replaced federally by this new conditional control movement order. What do you think?
I would like to start about the CMCO first, because the CMCO was done, I think, on the 4th of May, right?
Yes.
When we were in the middle of phase 4 of MCO. And I think I would like to talk about the feeling or the mentality of the people. I think, for speaking for myself, I was mentally prepared to be under MCO all the way until Raya. Hari Raya itself, I was mentally prepared. And I think most Malaysians were mentally prepared. And when the news that the phase 4 of MCO was cut short and replaced to MCO, and businesses given only 2 days over the weekend to prepare, people say it was crash landing.
Yeah, of course. At
was
first,
it crash landing?
it was abrupt, as what DG Hisham would call it, but the reason as to why government was abrupt at making this decision is because they weren't willing to lose 100 billion ringgit in revenue anymore, which is understandable. But I think
they said that they were losing 2.4 billion ringgit per day of MCO. Yeah.
But 4th of May, if like people are watching or like are quite vivid viewers of international news globally, they'll notice a lot of countries are doing the same thing. Lifting a lot of restrictions on the 4th of May, particularly on the 4th of May. Why this date?
Okay, that's because if internal circulation of money, it's not enough to sustain a country itself, and we would still garner losses if the entire world is not operating alongside us. Yeah. Hence why a lot of countries just agreed to do that, because that was also after WHO released the 6 principles of when you can start your exit strategy.
So it was some sort of peer pressure like that.
Yeah,
Because you see your neighbors opening, you have to, or you are inclined to open back.
Yeah, of course.
But that's another thing that I'm skeptical about on this issue of needing to open a lot of sectors, is that they incurred a lot of money. And that's what they suggest. We don't have enough money, we need to open back the economy. Like, haven't you supposedly calculated this early on? And then, because the reason why I'm saying this is SOPs are very important. And given 2 days notice to construct a standardized SOP is very hard.
Maybe, wait, I have a question. Did they give out the SOP or did they ask the companies to come out with the SOPs? They gave out the SOPs, right?
They gave out.
Maybe I think what went wrong was they had discussed this earlier since the phase 1 of MCO, but they did not be transparent and tell us. They had these SOPs all in place, but they decide to tell us 2 days before they open, which was wrong.
Yeah, of course.
You should be transparent and tell us way earlier so that it's not just about preparing physically, you still have to prepare yourself mentally, this and that. And I think that's what went wrong, or why it was presumed as a crash landing.
Also, there's a major inconsistency with how the news and the government in general is working. 3rd May, DG Hisham himself just said, it's too abrupt, we shouldn't do this, we should solely focus on health and trying to flatten the curve even more before we open up or, partially open up our economy. And then 8th May, he said, it's important and the CMCO is the soft landing approach before we enter our exit strategy. So you see, even within the government spectrum or the governing body, I feel as though they themselves aren't sure 100% what they're doing and the policies that they're trying to pass. This is further argument why Parliament is extremely needed in the first place. Because when you have Parliament, you put ministers on the spot, telling them to answer why are there loopholes in your policy? What about this part of the society? What about these people? What about these vulnerable communities? And stuff like that.
Okay. So, how about this whole issue of interstate travelling?
Oh yeah, again, abrupt during the first phase of MCO. People had went to orang dah balik kampung, and then students were stranded. I think interstate travelling, constricting interstate travelling is a very smart move, I think. Until we're able to contain the coronavirus in Malaysia, fully contained, and then we can open back interstate travelling. As of now, I think it's better that we keep it controlled and not let it spread, because some some states are doing really well, like Perlis, our East Coast, Kelantan, Terengganu, our Sabah and Sarawak are also doing really well, and it's not fair for them. It's very easy from someone from Selangor to just travel to Perak and then spread.
Exactly.
But recently, what I didn't understand was that interstate travelling was allowed from May 7 to May 10. Why?
Because within that short period of time, when you have a lot of cars on the road, you can make sure it's constrained. Like all your police officials are down there, making sure that there is smooth journey between all the people.
But the virus would still be able to spread in that 3 days. What's the difference between opening?
Big empathy, right, towards the demographic of Malaysia.
It's necessary to say.
So this was because, like, in terms of containing, you open 3 days and then you close for another 3 days. It doesn't. There's no difference.
But I think it's easier controlled like that because you're not just letting people go whenever they want.
Alright,
and even
but
going,
it was all by
application.
No, I mean the people traveled by private transport, right?
Yes.
No public transport.
No.
Right? So in a way, it is.
Because you got to concede there's a limited amount of officials, limited amount of police, limited amount of roadblocks that you could conduct. So it's better to get this done with a certain time frame. So we are able to contain it. And like what a lot of newspapers reported was there was a very high compliance rate. So I think that's good. I think people are maintaining that mentality of social distancing and they are not deviating away from, diorang nak balik KL, diorang balik KL. Jangan stop mana-mana. And I think that's one thing that we are able to say we've done really good. We are able to instill that mentality of social distancing. Whenever I go to a mall, whenever I go and buy groceries, I go to the mall to buy groceries. I'm not doing anything else. Everyone will be wearing a mask. Every single store will provide hand sanitizers. Everyone will wash their hands. And that's good.
I think Malaysians are disciplined in a way. Our compliance rate to the MCO was about 98%, right?
Yeah.
98%, which is very high. If you drive around and you buy the food and whatnot, you can see, if you live in a landed property, you have space, you're lucky, you're privileged. But when on the way to buy groceries, I drive past this PPR, these apartments, and it's very heartening to see that they don't even go down to the playground to play the kids. Can you imagine living in a 10 by 10 apartment with I don't know how many people in your family with no ventilation, limited sunlight, and you still don't go down? It's very, very respectable, and it shows how good we are as a citizen.
The compliance is so good.
But,
you compare this to America. How dumb are white people?
Oh my god. They're abusing the tagline, my body, my choice.
Exactly, it's so dumb.
But a point that I think is valid to make also is just because we're compliant and disciplined, it doesn't mean government can be complacent in being transparent with us. As a democracy, we deserve a government that tells us everything in detail and tell us why it's important.
And I think we're moving towards that. I think we've, I think people are less focused on DG and whatever health reports he gives, and people are more focused on politics. A lot of things are happening right now.
Currently, with the implementation of CMCO, we have vote of no confidence.
Yeah.
We have appointment of GLCs to
that has
member
been
of
happening.
parliaments.
I don't know whether this is coincidental or whether it's politicians taking the opportunity of people not scrutinizing them because all of our eyes are on COVID. If the trend continues on globally, you see Brazil, what they're doing, the President Bolsonaro, what they're doing to the rainfall is at a time where people, their eyes are entirely on COVID. You go to South Korea, was it? Japan, where they wanted to move prosecutors' age from 63 to 65. You may not know this, but the bottom line is that a lot of things now happening at this particular time is very political. The question, why is it happening simultaneously right now? Is it because the politicians are taking the opportunity of people not scrutinizing them? Or is it just coincidental that it's happening globally?
Yeah. So I think to close this off about CMCO or how our government is doing, I think our government, in terms of our civil servant, are doing really well in terms of drafting out their SOPs and giving out policies. Honestly, our policies are not that bad. But I think what we are doing bad as a government is that information is not being released. They are not transparent enough. They don't understand how important it is to be transparent with the people. Because when they become transparent, it's easier for people to work with the government in terms of compliance rate. When they know what they have to do, it will be done. It has been proven in the first phase of MCO. And I think this is something that the government needs to work on.
But it's not all rainbows, of course. There has been problems. There will continue to be problems. For example, the first phase, CMO, or was it the second phase? Where are the care centres? Bila mak bapak pergi kerja, both of the parents working, what happens to the child?
Wait, I think, I mean, in terms of government position, they did not do anything. But I think that there was an NGO who did during the first week of MCO, right?
Oh, many.
There was that Bantu Pekerja Frontliner Jaga Anak, something like that, right?
Yep.
There was something going on.
Was it standardized? What was it?
No. It was
was
a
it?
completely
Volunteer.
volunteer
This
and
is-
personal initiative rather than a policy, which, I mean, when our government is not good, I think it's good to know, or it's heartening to know that our people, we have good NGOs which can step up.
But it's not enough.
It's not enough, yeah, but it's heartening.
You look at like multiple sectors, you are able to find problems. So like when it comes to care centers, that's the first problem. When you look at health, contohnya, the first few phases, you cannot keluar more than 10 kilometers, right?
Yep.
But what about cancer patients? Patients that require to go and get chemo. Not all clinics and not all hospitals are able to cater to that. So they need to move a certain distance to get their treatment, right? So it's these small things that people are concerned about. Their life is disrupted, and sometimes it's disrupted in a way that it could be fatal for them. Another thing, BPN. Ditutup, lepas tu dibuka balik. So the question is also like the amount you get. And sometimes the question is whether you get it or not. What we found out is that people who have a company registered under SSM, these people will not be getting money.
Yeah.
What's the logic in this?
Well, most of the people, so your account dah lama tak active. It's just registered under that.
Exactly.
And government help isn't macam thorough. It's a lie when they say everyone is going to get help.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I heard the BPN was that they took your tax report from 2019.
Oh.
But a lot of people were laid off. Unemployment. What was the status? 600,000, is it?
Yeah, I
There
believe
was,
so.
I don't think tak confirm the number yet.
But in conclusion, kesian Makcik Kia.
Some say Makcik Kia kena tipu.
We'll continue on talking about this. There's so much to talk about. And the time of recording this is almost berbuka. Right? So I think me, Zarif and Sarah are going to McD.
InsyaAllah.
So
No,
we're
we're gonna
using-
buka puasa makanan rumah, Fik.
No,
kita
but
kan ada
we can
discount.
use the Binti Ahmad Zahid discount. Can use that
20%
discount.
off.
Alalang kita minum air suam sekali.
Oh my god.
Makan berjemaah dekat masjid.
Okay, you
Really,
guys.
we need a person, a comedian, to do these kinds of what you call it, sarcastic commentary on politicians.
Like a Saturday Night Live of America.
Exactly.
That's quite cool, right?
Yeah.
There are politicians in Malaysia right now. They give a lot of good content that you could make fun of.
We need comedians because
That's
our
one way
politicians
to
are
put it.
clowns.
Alright, guys.
Yeah, I think that's all.
Alright.
Thank you so much for listening. Salam Ramadan.
Selamat
Stay
berbuka.
safe.
Selamat berpuasa.
Selamat puasa.
Jangan ponting puasa.
We hope you're doing well at home. Thank you again for listening to our podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Sembang Santai Podcast. So, that is all for today's episode. I'm Sarah, Afiq, Zarif. We wish you once again, thank you.